do you see the boundary between these two blocks? Can you see a boundary between these two blocks? Now, if I apply a little bit of tension, the boundary opens up. Do you understand that? The boundary opens up. Now, as the boundary opens up, it means the gap between both the rocks have increased. Look here very carefully. So we are talking about the orogenetic forces. The orogenetic forces are also called as tangential forces. The epirogenetic forces are known as radial forces. Both of them are what type of forces? Diastrophic forces. It means that mountains are built overnight or over millions of years. Millions. Do you understand that? Okay. Now, orogenetic forces, they could either be compressive forces or they could be tensional forces. Now, we all know tensional forces creates what? Crustal fracture. Very good. Whereas compressive forces create what? Crustal bending. Crustal bending. But you must also keep this in mind that extreme compression can also cause crustal fracture. Crustal fracture simply means developing of cracks over the surface. Got it? Now, crustal fracture is of two types. One is joints, the other one is faults. You understand that? Whereas crustal bending is also of two types. One is folding or folds, the other one is warps. Do you understand that? So let's talk about joints and faults first. Both are crustal fracture. Now think of this. Suppose these are two crustal rocks. Do you understand that? If I take my hands away, it means what type of force? Tensional force. So look here very carefully. Now, do you see the boundary between these two blocks? Can you see a boundary between these two blocks? Now, if I apply a little bit of tension, the boundary opens up. Do you understand that? The boundary opens up. Now, as the boundary opens up, it means the gap between both the rocks have increased. Got it? But keep this thing in mind that if this is huge crustal block, suppose this block is 100 kilometers in size, this one is 70 kilometers in size, and if they go away from each other just by say 10 millimeters, can you appreciate that change very well? No, you will not be able to appreciate that change very well. So what is a joint? Look here. A joint is a crustal fracture. Joint and fault both are crustal fracture. So a joint is a crustal fracture wherein, now this is the key line, listen to this very carefully, wherein there is no appreciable movement of the neighboring rock blocks along the zone of fracture. Do you get that? Like say for example, these are two blocks and if I just move them a little bit, there is some movement of the rock blocks along the zone of fracture, but that movement is not such huge that it could be very easily appreciated by everyone. You get it? It means some cracks have developed over the surface, but the rock blocks have not moved away from each other to a great extent. That is known as joint. So what is a joint? Listen to this one more time. A joint is a kind of crustal fracture where there is not appreciable movement of rock blocks along the zone of fracture. I am not saying not any movement of rock blocks, I am saying not appreciable movement. मतलब बहुत ज़्यादा नहीं हुआ है, थोड़ा सा ही हुआ है. It means the cracks have just opened up. Are you understanding that thing? Now what is a fault? Suppose this time I am showing you the rock blocks like this. Can you see the two rock blocks? Now this is the boundary between both of them. Can you see the line? Now suppose there is so much of movement that one block has slipped. That can happen due to gravity. Do you get that? Now can you see appreciable movement of rock blocks along the zone of fracture? Can you see that? This thing is known as faulting. Got it? So faulting और joints, ये दोनों क्या है? Crustal fracture के टाइप है. दोनों किस वजह से होते हैं? टेंशन की वजह से होते हैं. टेंशन में क्या होता है सर, फट ही जाता है ना, तो वैसा ही है रॉक्स, वो भी टूट जाते हैं टेंशन में. सो व्हेन देयर इज not appreciable movement of rock blocks along the zone of fracture, that is known as joints. When there is appreciable movement of rock blocks along the zone of fracture, that is known as faults. Do you understand that? And we'll go deeper into the faults. Got it? Now what is fold? What is a fold? How do you define a fold? Okay, you tell me. If I bring my hands towards each other, I'm applying what? Compression. Now, can you see what is happening to the paper? Can you understand that? This is known as folding. This is a fold. How do you define a fold? Can I say a fold is a wave-like feature? A fold is a wave-like feature and which has a crest and a trough, or which has an up-folded part and a down-folded part. Do you understand that? This is the fold. A fold always happens due to compressive forces. Can you understand that? Whenever we show compressive forces, we show them by arrow moving towards each other, whereas tensional forces, arrow moving away from each other. Do you get that? So look here. What is a fold? A fold is a wave-like feature formed in the crustal rocks due to compressive forces. Every fold has a crest and a trough, an up-folded part and a down-folded part. The up-folded part is also known as anticline. Do you understand that? That's the technical name of up-folded part. Whereas down-folded part is known as syncline. Do you understand that? When a syncline occurs at a huge geographical level, that is known as a geosyncline. Do you understand that? और टेथिस सी नाम याद है? टेथिस was actually a geosyncline. हम बात करेंगे उसके बारे में, वो कैसे बना, क्या हुआ उसके साथ. बट ये बात क्लियर अभी तक आपको? So I'm again repeating. I'm saying that compressive forces can cause wave-like features to be formed in crustal rocks. Such wave-like features are known as folds. Every fold has an up-folded part and a down-folded part. The up-folded part is known as anticline. The down-folded part is known as syncline. The topmost section of the up-folded part is known as crest. The bottommost section of the down-folded part is known as trough. Do you understand that? And you know the distance between the trough and the crest. That is the height of the fold. If this is the wave, you understand how a wave height is calculated? Do you understand that? Now, look here very carefully. When this folding occurs at huge geographical scale, that is known as warping. Do you understand that? So, folding could cause what? There could be up folding and there could be down folding. And warping can also be of two types. One is up warping and then डाउन वॉपिंग. फर्क क्या है वॉपिंग और फोल्डिंग का? कुछ भी नहीं, बस इतना कि वॉपिंग जो है वो बहुत ज्यादा एरिया पे जब फोल्डिंग होती है उसको कहते हैं. Got it? When folding occurs at huge geographical scale, that is known as warping. Got it? Whereas when it is localized, it is known as fold. Sometimes fold and warps are used interchangeably. Got it? Like say for example, we say fold mountains. You get it? Are you aware about this term? Fold mountains. Himalayas are what kind of mountains? Fold mountains. Got it? और folding किसकी वजह से हो रहा है? Compression की वजह से. और compression किस टाइप का force है? Orogenetic force. और orogenesis का मतलब ही क्या होता है? Mountain building. अब समझ में आ रहा है जो लिंक बैठ रहा है पूरा? So I'm again repeating. Orogenetic forces, two types, compressive and tensional. Compressive forces, crustal bending, but extreme compression can cause crustal fracture. Tensional forces cause crustal fracture. Fracture is of two types, joints and faults. फर्क क्या है? Joints, no appreciable movement of rock blocks along the crustal fracture zone, whereas in faults there is appreciable movement of the rock blocks around the zone of fracture. Crustal bending भी दो तरह के होते हैं, folding and warping. When we say Fold, it means it's a wave-like feature which is caused by compressive stress. It has an upfolded part which is known as anticline, a downfolded part which is known as syncline. When there is a syncline which is at huge geographical scale, it is known as geosyncline. You know, the word geo means earth, syncline prepared over the earth's surface. Now, what is warping? Warping is nothing but folding at a very large geographical scale. Geosyncline is at large geographical scale. Warping is very large geographical scale.